Ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize for the slightly late start. Our guest speaker will arrive shortly. We're going to make a slight change to the program in that we're going to have a minute or two of devotion, which is not on the program, and that is going to be heralded by the Marcus Garvey singers. But before we do that, for the start of this program, we're going to invite everyone to stand while we have the national anthem of Jamaica played, and then the UNIA anthem played immediately following the Jamaica national anthem.
Eternal Father, bless our land. Guide us with thy mighty hand. Keep us free from evil powers. Be our light through countless hours. To our leaders, great defenders, grant true wisdom from above. Justice, truth be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love. Teach us true respect for all. Stir response to duty's call. Strengthen us the weak to cherish. Give us visions lest we perish. Knowledge centers, Heavenly Father, grant wisdom from above. Justice be ours forever. Jamaica, land we love. Jamaica, 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 land we love.
Please remain standing.
Ethiopia, thou land of our fathers, thou land where the gods love to be, as storm cloud at night suddenly gathers, o'er armies come rushing to thee. We must in the fight be victorious, when swords are thrust outward to gleam. For us will the victory be glorious, when led by the red, black, and green. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be free. Advance to meet the foe, advance to meet the foe, with the might of the red, the black, and the green, with the might of the red, the black, and the green. O Jehovah, thou God of the ages, grant unto our sons that need the wisdom thou gave to thy sages when Israel was sore in need. Thy voice through the dim past has spoken, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hand. By thee shall all fetters be broken, and heaven bless our dear motherland. Advance, advance to victory, let Africa be
Thank you very much. You may be seated. And just for information, that second anthem of the Noah's Garvey's anthem, the anthem of the United Negro Improvement Association, which he headed, worldwide organization. The Marcus Garvey group that will do an item for us for our devotion. Could you come forward, please?
Good morning, everyone. This morning I'll be singing an item from Psalms 20, Rhoda Isabella. I'll say of the Lord that He is my refuge. In Him will I put all of my trust. He's taking me daily from glory to glory. So in Him will I trust. Him will I trust. 'Cause some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but I will remember the name of my God. He is a warrior, and yes, He is mighty. In Him will I trust. Him will I trust. He is my defender, my shield and butler. My hope is built firmly on Him. In mountains and valley, my God is before me. So in Him will I trust. Him will I trust. 'Cause some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but I will remember the name of my God. He is a warrior. Oh yeah, yes, He is mighty. In Him will I trust. Him will I trust. Psalms 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the path of righteousness for His name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff may comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercies shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen.
Appropriately named after our national hero who was born in St. Anne's Bay and is a homester of this parish. I'm now inviting the Custos Emeritus, Honorable Radcliffe Walters, to lead us in prayer.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Mr. Chairman, I crave you and our audience indulgence just to acknowledge the persons responsible for organizing this lecture for us. And I started as chairman of the St. Anne Homecoming Association, the Honorable Norma Walters, Custos Rotelum for the parish of St. Anne, Miss Merlene Walker, Regional Director, St. Jamaica Library Services for St. Anne and Trelawney, Mr. James Walsh, the past principal of Ferncourt High School and a member of our association. And also, sir, to acknowledge and recognize Miss Dr. Yvonne Clark, Yvonne Graham, I beg your pardon, who has now returned again from the United States to join us in her home parish, St. Anne, and was also one of our lecturers or guest speaker at one of our homecoming functions. And so now I invite you to stand as we continue our invocation. O God, we desire, like the psalmist, to say how good it is for men and women to dwell together in unity. We praise you for your constant call in individuals to work for the principle of human liberation and the fulfillment which makes this unity possible. Heavenly Father, accept our thanks for Marcus Garvey, who you raised up and endowed with many gifts to pursue the goal which has benefited succeeding generations. As we seek to continue the revolution of equality and equity among peoples of the world, grant us both the vision and courage to see higher education as an area where human liberation and fulfillment may take place, therefore making Marcus Garvey's dream come to pass. A dream of a revolution that brings forth just society where all diversities of races from each continent and island are respected and brought in together in Christ. Let your spirit of liberation be with us in today's proceedings and in the ongoing work that we pursue from the teaching of our Savior, Marcus Garvey. We offer up these requests and payment in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
So thank you very much, Honorable Ratcliffe Waters, for that leading us in prayer. And so we move on with the program. We're still awaiting the entrance of our guest speaker, who is none other than the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies and the President of the University of the West Indies. And later on we'll find out that he is a born St. Annian. He's right here from the parish of St. Anne's. He's a homeboy. So I want you all, please, when he comes in, let us just do the normal standing up. Let us give him a round of applause. Son of the soil, son of St. Anne, okay? When he comes, when he enters. I have a dual role. I am going to be giving you the opening remarks shortly, but at the same time, as chairman of the St. Anne Association, I just want to take 2 more minutes to refresh your minds, or to introduce you rather, to some of you anyway, the role and the development and the origin and the story behind the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Foundation. And you'll find that it's not only about Marcus Garvey, although that's our priority. It is about other things that we have been dedicated to doing over the past years, since 2009, and it has played a very powerful role in promoting education and in promoting culture in the parish of St. Anne and in promoting youth development. You will hear more about that later. But the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Committee was launched in 2003, not 2009, beg your pardon, as an organization of civic-minded and local volunteers, all volunteers who got together, shared a passion for the promotion of matters pertaining to the heritage and culture of St. Anne, the Garden Parish of Jamaica. The Garden Parish of Jamaica, where the first European civilization pioneers met with the local, original inhabitants of Jamaica, not the Arawaks, the Taínos, right? That first meeting actually took place in St. Anne at Discovery Bay, 1494. So St. Anne and us, we are proud of our start of history, start of the beginning of the evolution of Jamaica. So we have a passion as a Heritage Committee to try and promote and make people understand and know about that. Started out under the guidance of our patron, who is the Honorable Ratcliffe Walters. At the time, he was the Custos Rotolorum of St. Anne, and the organization was incorporated in 2009, okay, 2009, as a Heritage Foundation. We have recorded several extraordinary achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not a pure foundation. You don't hear much of us. Since COVID, we have been gradually coming back into the picture, but we have done a whole heap of things in the parish, while maintaining a strong focus on the philosophy of Marcus Garvey, who is our first national hero. Remember, the foundation has been able to diversify, as I told you, its projects and embrace the aims and aspirations of the parish of St. Anne. And the range of tasks and responsibilities are by no means integral to the mission of the foundation. I beg your pardon, ladies and gentlemen, guess who just came in? Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Denzel Williams, the Pro Vice Chancellor and the President of the University of the West Indies. Sir, you come just in time to see a lot of your future students. See them in uniform there? That side and this side. And some of the older ones too. Not me, but some of the older ones are here. Welcome, welcome. So we're just doing a little introduction of the foundation. I'll just wrap up by saying, remind everybody that we're here as St. Annians. We are integral to the mission and vision of the foundation, and we have a role to play in the development of the parish. Heritage is not a buzzword, everybody. It's a legacy of values and standards of earlier generations, which when understood and appreciated can guarantee a better quality of life for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, protocol observed. Honorable Norma Walters Custos, Rotolorum, Honorable Ratcliffe Walters, Professor Denzel Williams, the Director of the Information Technology, Mrs. Tiffany Forbes, I believe she's here or she's on her way, of the Jamaica Library Service. And we have the Senior Librarian, Mrs. Opal Scott, and the Regional Director, Mrs. Merlene Walker, is here with us. And they have already been introduced. We have Mr. James Walsh, a former lecturer and a well-known educator in the parish, members of the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Foundation, members of the media, including the UWITV and Education Unit, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen here this morning. Good morning, everyone, again. It is with much pleasure that I welcome the audience to this 13th Marcus Garvey lecture, presented at the St. Anne Parish Library every year. We like to say at the feet of Marcus Garvey, because the statue is out there, and that's pretty big feet, eh? And that's a pretty big shoes to follow sometimes. He has pretty big feet too, I can tell you. I can't fit into those feet. But anyway, you saw the statue, front court. Yeah, you passed by the statue. As you know, the annual lecture series celebrates the life of our first national hero and commemorates his death, which took place on June 10, 1940. This function marks a significant memorial tribute being paid to an outstanding Jamaican of international status. Today and over the weekend, functions like this one are being held nationally and all over the world. I took a look at Google and you'll be surprised to know the amount of functions and commemorative events are being held to celebrate Marcus Garvey's life and mark his death, the anniversary of his death, in Africa, different states of Africa, in America, all over the United States of America, Brooklyn, Mount Vernon, Florida, New York, England, London, and in the Caribbean too, and in Jamaica, right here in St. Anne's Bay. So we're a part of a huge worldwide celebration and anniversary. This function is presented by the St. Anne Homecoming and is endorsed by Discovery Bauxite Partners and the Jamaica Library Service. So we have to thank our sponsors, but we must give credit all times to the right excellent Marcus Garvey, to whose memory we are paying respects. Today, we have recognized our guests, special guests, and we recognize everyone who is here. We thank Professor Williams for accepting our invitation to deliver the lecture. We know how hard it was for you, sir, to leave that nice, hot place in Kingston, that turbulent, to come spend a day on the North Coast. Boy, what a choice. What a choice. And anyway, you're here, and we want you to have a wonderful time with us and be with us. Mr. Dell has apologized. He has not yet arrived. He's from Discovery Bauxite, the general manager, but he was here with us last year as a 12th lecturer, presenter, and he has apologized. He might be late or might not be able to come at all, but I just want to make a note that he and Discovery Bauxite Company and the employees of that company have been very faithful supporters of the Marcus Garvey lecture series over the years, and we're very fortunate to have him deliver. He sends his best regards for a successful program. Ladies and gentlemen, our first national hero continues to attract a wide cross-section of the society at this annual event. And there are other distinguished guests among us, of course, which I'm not able to name everyone, and you will understand that. But we are very pleased, in particular, to see the students who always make a significant contribution to this function, not only by their presence, but by the observations and the fresh thinking that they bring to discussion and to the conversation. So it is with much pleasure, therefore, that I now invite the Honorable Norma Walters to bring us greetings on behalf of her parish of St. Anne and of the Foundation.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Robert Nesta Marley. Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Lance Nita. The Honorary Ratcliffe Walters, Custos Emeritus, St. Anne. Our guest lecturer, Professor Denzel A. Williams, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies and the principal of this campus in Muna. Ms. Merlene Walker, Regional Director of the Jamaica Library Service, Ms. Opal Scott, Senior Librarian right here, Mr. James Walsh, Justice of the Peace, retired Principal of the Brownstown Community College, members of the University TV Global Staff, led by Ms. Carew, who is online, I think, Mr. Bruce, Dr. Maurice Smith, who I think is also apologizing. He's a registrar of the University of the West Indies. We got Mr. Delroy Dell's apology. We have in the audience Dr. Yvonne Graham here from the diaspora, from the Global Jamaica Citizenry. That's what's the new name for the diaspora. Mrs. Marlene Davidson, the chairman of the St. Anne Justices of the Peace Association, Mr. Williams of the Ministry of Education, teachers, students, Justices of the Peace, the JCDC staff of the Jamaica Library Service, other members of the private and public sector, distinguished citizens, all a very good morning to you. I am very pleased to be given this awesome opportunity to bring greetings on this occasion of the 13th annual Marcus Garvey Lecture. been hosted by the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Foundation in collaboration with the Jamaica Library Service Network, the St. Anne branch, and so well supported by the University of the West Indies TV Global Network. Firstly, let me convey the fine welcome already extended by our chairman, Mr. Nita, to our guest lecturer, Professor Denzel Williams. He knows that he joins a distinguished line of sons of the soil who have graced us with their presence to keep faith and to facilitate this process of recognition for our first national hero, the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Sir, we look forward with anticipation to your excellent presentation. Let me use this opportunity also to apologize for the absence from our virtual platform of Their Excellencies, the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, Governor General, and the Most Honorable Lady Allen, who have asked us to say, regrettably, they could not join us. And all the other friends who have sent their apologies far and wide. I hail the presence online of our past Governor General, His Excellency, the Most Honorable Sir Kenneth Hall, himself a past lecturer, who is joining us online, and I hail and welcome all the other members of our diaspora who are joining us, our global citizenry. I greet all of you here very well, you who have so kindly gathered for this event. I'm sure that we leave here being uplifted and renewed for our own role as invaluable citizens and leaders, especially, as I said, to our global citizenry, where our own Marcus Garvey lived among them in these other metropolitan climes. You who have returned home to your country of origin, to the students and their teachers who are in the audience, I thank you and I hail you wholeheartedly. My friends, ladies and gentlemen, the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Foundation is indeed pleased to let the world know that in this independent 21st century Jamaica, we are holding ourselves accountable as citizens to lead the charge for continuous change and to be a part of public advocacy and thought-provoking leadership, to lend credence to Marcus Garvey's legacy of philosophy and opinions in the fight against the continuing dehumanization of Black African civilization and its variants. Indeed, Professor Rex Nettleford puts it correctly. Marcus is the remains of a source of energy for the efforts of those who love freedom, and the efforts of those who abhor the bigotry of racial discrimination. Indeed, our children of our village program, as Mr. Lance Nita spoke about, a program that encourages social, academic, instructional, and mentoring intervention, is a testament of our commitment to reverse the trend of underperforming males, rightly called males at risk, in the grades 4 to 6 in the institutions of learning at the St. Anne's Primary School and at the Priory Primary School, and we have recently added the Lime Hall Primary School. We're very, very pleased with the work that has been carried on by Mr. Lance Nita in conjunction with Ms. Roseanne Verga of Hart, that we continue in particular this area of our work. The fear is that there is such a doubt among the people who are yet to be grasped the full measure of our real place in the wide world. So well have we embraced the tenets of colonialism, the entrenched practices of divide and rule, the one-upmanship that lies within. It is now vital that we confront this enemy. The leadership of our national hero, our Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, is to be prized, and as we work towards claiming our full selves as men and women of worth and of value. So my friends, ladies and gentlemen, We are calling this gathering our special welcome to Marcus Garvey Country Moment. Indeed, we're very proud to be doing this. You know, it was Mark 6, St. Mark 6:5, which says, there is no prophet without acceptance, nay, indeed, honor, save except in his own country and among his own relatives and in his own home. This show of disrespect has happened to our national hero, our son of St. Anne, our Marcus Garvey, many times, as in the estimation and value system of the time, the messenger that he became did not have the obvious attributes to lead a charge internationally to challenge the status quo. He did not have the status quo for dismantling a system of subservience, racial prejudice, and social injustice, the attendant cruelties against humanity. So we've gathered this 84th year, the anniversary of his death. And I can tell you, in this time, not a lot has changed. It's sad to admit, but we're going to have to swallow this bitter pill. Because we ourselves, as black people in this country, have not grasped our full selves. So there's a lot that has not changed, and we want you to leave here as a catalyst for change, for seeing yourselves for the valuable persons that we are. So we are here gathered to dismantle the process and to discourage this undervaluing of self and to put an end to it. The life of our national hero, the right excellent Marcus Garvey, has been a clarion call for self-realization, for self-acceptance, self-reliance, self-development, in shaping of a society, economic, vital, coordination, social action, cultural certitude. I did not say cultural servitude. When I wrote it, that's what my iPad showed. Cultural certitude. It brought up servitude. So we know how our minds have been affected. The intellectual muscle, as it's been described by our Professor Rex Nettleford of wonderful fame. It was Eleanor Roosevelt, my friends, who said, no man can make you feel inferior, no person, no one, less than yourself, yes, can damage your self-worth, yes, can put you down without your consent. Freedom comes from within, she said, and the choices that we make ultimately are our responsibilities. So gatherings like this, ladies and gentlemen, set the needed framework for the time for us to master our minds for greatness, to master our creative intellect for serious reimagining and reimagination. So at this master class of lecture, this Marcus Garvey lecture, this one so much in this 2024 gathering, the time is right to build self-confidence, to engage positive self-talk, to surround yourself with positive people, to stop comparing yourselves with everybody else, to desist from thinking in absolutes. For example, and I have the young people here, we want them to cut out this rubbish when they be talking to us, at them say, everybody say, hello, what are you saying? Eden, I will also stop the hello from Pauline, but everybody can say, read for yourself. It must go, those words must go. Find your own level. Practice assertiveness. Practice self-assurance. Let me take this awesome opportunity, therefore, to reset the compass of our minds, to remember no one set of people have the monopoly on social organization, the monopoly on intellectual ordering of experience, monopoly on cultural products of the imagination or on the administration of power. We are a powerful people here. Yes, there is much work to be done by all of us. But let us renew our resolve to throw off the shackles of negativity which continue to detain us. Again, thank you. Thank you all for coming. I greet you well. I welcome you all wholeheartedly, and we look forward to an excellent lecture. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could you give us another round of applause for our Custos? That's a very inspiring speech as usual, and we are grateful, and we accept and hope we will put your words into effect. We now move on. We'll change a slight change again. We're going to ask Mr. Walsh, who's on the program, to come up to introduce our guest speaker, our lecturer, in the interest of time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Custos Emeritus, members of the management staff of the library, all our distinguished guests, especially our distinguished student guests. Good morning to you. Professor Williams has a time constraint, so my not introducing him at length is not a disrespect, right? No, you can. It is nice. Oh. Yes. Professor Williams is a very distinguished academic. He is qualified in economics and management, in which he got a first degree. He actually worked in the non-academic private sector for a while with Cable and Wireless, I think it was. We'll forgive him for that. And he entered into academia. He headed the Mona School of Business and Management, which is the largest and most prestigious business school in the Caribbean or in the West Indies. And he subsequently then went to the Five Islands campus of the UWI, which I know many of you would never have heard about, in Antigua, where he played a major role in a short time in concretizing and adding to the development and advancement of that campus, right? Which is kind of started from scratch. The UWI was so impressed with his work that the UWI then took him back to Jamaica, the original headquarters of UWI, as Pro-Vice Chancellor and Principal of the Mona campus, which continues to be the largest campus. He has served Jamaica in many areas. He has put his knowledge of business and planning and organization to the use of many different organizations on which he has served on the board or as an advisor and as a consultant. But that's just scratching the surface. But more important, he will then speak to you on a somewhat different topic, and I'm sure we will be enlightened and we can take it from there. So let us welcome Professor Denzel Williams.
Thank you very much, Mr. James Walsh, legendary teacher and my old friend. Yeah? Thank you very much. So good to be here. I do apologize that I had to ask our distinguished chairman to make an adjustment to the program because I do have a 1:15 presentation again. I had one this morning. I ran a little bit late, so I came in here late, but I have a 1:15 again that I will go to. So I do apologize, but I also am appreciative that you were able to accommodate me. So Chairman, thank you very much. Indeed, this morning, I think Marcus Garvey will be proud that you're having this very distinguished lecture in a library because knowledge was key to Garvey. And so I'm very pleased to be here in St. Anne to participate in this lecture. But let me just really use the opportunity to welcome and to say, express my gratitude to the entire planning committee of the St. Anne Homecoming and Heritage Foundation. Interestingly, I was in Buffalo 2 weeks ago, and I met the mayor of Buffalo, who proudly told me that he's a St. Anne man, and is looking forward to coming back home. So St. Anne is doing great things. But let me recognize Honorable Norma Walters, Custos Rotolorum of St. Anne, Honorable Radcliffe Walters, Custos Emeritus, Let me also recognize the regional director, Ms. Milane Walker, and the senior librarian, Ms. Opal Scott, and members of staff of the St. Anne Parish Library. Let me also recognize members of the media who are here, and also my good friends from UWITV, and also the members of the Homecoming and Heritage Foundation. But it would be remiss of me not to recognize, as I indicated before, our very stalwart, Mr. James Walsh, who is indeed a treasure in the parish, and we should recognize you. I will also recognize my friends who have come out to give support this morning. Well, ladies and gentlemen, most importantly, I'm so pleased to see the students because they are the future, and I'm very happy that they would have come to engage in this conversation, and I look forward to welcoming all of you to UWI in the next few years, yeah? The only university in town. But welcome, and I'm so happy that you have taken the time. So let me say this morning that I intended to speak on what I call a topic that is dear to Garvey's heart, and that has to do with education. And those of you who would appreciate this lecture will appreciate that while I'm not going to delve into historicizing Marcus Garvey, and I leave that to my erstwhile colleagues who have spent a lot of time studying Garvey and looking at his work, I want to place the lecture in the broader context of Garvey's philosophy on the power of education. And I think that's appropriate because it captures a very fundamental tool which Garvey would have thought is the most powerful tool to help us to navigate as a people from the periphery into the mainstream. And so today my lecture is really entitled Access Revolution in Higher Education, Realizing the Garvey Dream. But I will start by acknowledging one of, I would say, Garvey's protege, if you wish. And those are the words from Bob Marley, because it sets the context within which we want to contextualize the presentation this morning. And Bob Marley says, "Bless my eyes this morning. Just sun is on the rise once again. The way earthly things are going, anything can happen." And I repeat, anything can happen. Indeed, anything can happen. And because we are confident that we are rest assured that Garvey's dream, after 137 years, which admonish us, up you mighty race, accomplish what you will, that can happen as well. And so, as a people, we could spend a lot of our time discussing and dissecting the myriads of problems that the world is seeing today. But I will just focus on a few to contextualize what Garvey would now say to us in order to deal with these situations and the tool that he would use to deal with them. We have war against nations. Russia-Ukraine conflict, Israel and Palestine conflicts come to mind. But on the horizon, we have to pay close attention to the China-Taiwan tension, as well as Guyana-Venezuela tension right in our backyard. These have led to escalating price of food, driven mostly by the senseless conflicts, and with these food crises placing more people into hunger and starvation. More persons are pushed into extreme poverty today than ever before because they cannot afford basic food. Indeed, the United Nations is predicting that by 2030, almost 575 million people globally will be living on less than $2.15 per day. That's US dollars. That is extreme poverty. Think about $2.15 US dollars, that is, and 15 cents per day. That is almost $300 Jamaican dollars. I don't think that can buy 2 patties in Jamaica. And 575 million people will be living on less than that in the next few years. because of these senseless problems that we're having. The refugee crisis is also real. This is another important observation to make. Persons moving from their homeland to seek solace in foreign places, mostly corrupt and inept leadership in these home countries, have forced persons to flee. Engagement in bitter conflicts to grab resources to secure future wealth, which only a few will benefit from, is the reality of some nations today. This indeed is a very bad situation for the state of humanity. The privileged few, aided by unthinking and uncaring political lobbyists, use their influence to steer governments to design policies that help them to reap economic and social status at the expense of the majority. As Bob noted, you see men sailing on their ego trips, blast off on their spaceships, million miles from reality. No one cares for you, no one cares for me. That is the reality of many of our people today. There's also the climate crisis. We're now seeing rising heat waves across Europe, North America, and almost all over the globe. There's the destruction of our soil, our flora, our fauna, which also affects food security. We've also just witnessed a global pandemic, COVID-19, one of a kind health crisis in the last century, has shown how interconnected the global economy is. It is not the end, and there will be many more crises to come over the next 100 years. We see, for example, today, monkeypox becoming a public health emergency. Ebola has not been dealt with in a substantial way. Global public health need new thinking and new strategies to deal with the uncertainty of pandemic life and pandemic health crises. There is also the need for more healthcare workers. As we've seen, there's a global shortage of healthcare workers. And I'll say something about that later on. But just to note that we at the university, we're doing something in a very substantial way, and we will announce this by June 25th in order to combat the shortage of healthcare workers in short order. Academic institutions will have to increase training in order to deal with the supply side of the human resource shortage in the healthcare sector. And may I just quickly add that while we're talking about the global pandemic, and we would have thought that the global pandemic is behind us, the truth is that the real impact of the pandemic is starting to be felt now. The real impact would not have been felt immediately after the aftermath of the pandemic, because there was pent-up demand for a lot of people who were not able to get out in the pandemic and do things that they wanted to do. They would, just getting the chance after the pandemic to do it. Now, having gone out of that period of anxiety and pent-up demand, the world is now settling down, and people are now starting to realize, hey, there is an issue here. There was a pandemic, resources are short. We have to now start to think very seriously as to how we're going to use the limited resources that we have. And so a quick explanation for that. If you look at last year this time, all the hotels were overflowing with guests. This year, hotel managers will tell you that they have to be discounting their prices to get people to come. And that's a reality, because 2 years ago or 18 months ago, everybody was still anxious to get out and do something. The hard reality now starting to hit. So the pandemic, while it has subsided, the real impact is going to be coming now. And that's something that we have to prepare ourselves for. We've also seen, besides these crises that I've described, the global political dynamics that are changing. At the level of global politics, there seems to be a trend towards the end of the dominance of the American century. There is a rise of new poles of power in Asia, and the Russian Federation is flexing its muscles with no uncertainty about their intentions to keep the Federation as a major global decision maker. The universe of geopolitics needs to be watched as various nations juggle for space within the emerging geopolitical repositioning of the post-Cold War period. So from wars to pandemics to global hunger, these are all existential threats to the directionality of humanity as the world population races to $8 billion people mark in the next 25 years. While these issues are many and varied and complex, I must say, in their orientation and contextualization, the solutions, if there are any, will require critical engagement at the cerebral level to emerge from these crises stronger each time. The winners from these emerging crises will be those countries that educate their population, and the losers will be those who fail to do so in its entirety and not partially. This position is beyond debate. As one of my colleagues said in a lecture I gave just last week, Wednesday, to the Kiwanis Club of Kingston on their 45th anniversary, and I was delivering a lecture along the same line, which really spoke about how do we use the macroeconomic dividends that we are now reaping as a country. How do we invest that to secure our future? And I made a critical observation that I think that we are now, this is going to be the big challenge for us as a country over the next decade. We see examples of how those dividends are being used now. And the question we have to ask ourselves, are those the most sustainable ways to use the dividend? So yes, it is important to build roads. Yes, it is important to build bridges. But are those going to be sustainable and secure a future for us in the long term? And my unequivocal answer is no. My unequivocal response to the dividends now is that we ought to use those dividends that are being gained from the macroeconomic stabilization that we are now seeing to invest in the development of our human capital. That is the only sure way that we can secure our future. Building bridges and roads and pipelines for water and stuff, that is not going to secure our future, because the majority of people in Jamaica will continue to struggle in the periphery if they do not have an education to deal with themselves in the future. So I think we have a big conversation that we have to face over the next decade. Where do we use those gains from the macroeconomic sacrifices that we have made over the last decade and a half? Because this macroeconomic dividends that we're seeing now didn't just come about over the last 5 or 7 years or so. This has been long in coming through the sacrifice of our people. Trade unions have made sacrifice, capital have made sacrifice, workers have made sacrifice. And we have come together and said, take the bull by the horn. We're not going to allow Jamaica to go over the precipice anymore. And we are going to deal in a systematic and substantial way with our fiscal challenges. And those fiscal challenges, while are necessary, not sufficient to secure our future. So what is sufficient to secure our future? The investment of that dividends in the right place. So that is a big conversation, Chairman, that we're going to have and we're going to have to deal with. And that calls me to answer the question, the call for total education in Jamaica. And I think Garvey would be on the same path if you follow the philosophy of Garvey. Total education to secure our future. It is Madiba Mandela, most of you know him as Nelson Mandela, who once said, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. If nations and institutions at the micro and the macro levels want to emerge from all these crises that I've just spoke about stronger and face the future with some level of certainty, the human capital stock must be educated and trained at the highest level of global competitiveness. Therefore, a nation must position its citizens to appreciate living with uncertainty while proactively managing the unknown. It therefore means the education system must have a strong focus on moving more people to acquire critical skills such as critical thinking, emotional intelligence, diversity, tolerance, teamwork, and all those others in order to participate in a process to derive solutions that is going to benefit all and not just a privileged few. The skills and capabilities required to drive the solutions to these processes in a volatile, uncertain, and complex and ambiguous world, a VUCA world, lies within the level of education that our people will have. To deal with a VUCA world, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, it is my own view that educating people at the lower level of the value chain only provides the foundation for numeracy and literacy, but it is not going to provide the foundation to deal with these critical complexities in the volatile world that we're dealing with. I've often remarked to my colleagues, I do not see a cancer researcher emerging from a primary school. I do not see an economist emerging from a secondary school. I do not see a physicist emerging from a secondary school. Because the level of the secondary school, ladies and gentlemen, is a foundational year, or those foundational years that provide you with the basics that you need. And indeed, you need those basics. And that is why I completely support universal access to primary, secondary education. Because we need those basics. But it doesn't make sense that we have the basics and then can't move forward. As I indicated before, when we talk about social injustice, this is what is social injustice. We sit here, we have our students here, we say, go to school, take your books, do well, and position yourself to be what you want in life. And they take us seriously. And they go to school, they don't go on the internet, they sacrifice and they do their studies. They get their 13 CXCs and their 7 CAPE subjects. They say, I want to be a medical doctor, I want to be a physicist, I want to be an entrepreneur. And then, lo and behold, they reach the point now to make that leap over into getting the skills to be a medical doctor, getting the skills to be a physicist, getting the skills to be an entrepreneur. And we hear that they can't access because they can't afford it. That is injustice. That is injustice. And that is why I am saying we have to think more seriously about how we educate our population. I gave the example at some point in time. One Sunday morning I woke up and I looked at the Gleaner, and on the front page was a young man from an inner city area. I think it was 17 or 19 CXCs or some numbers like that he had. All A profile, CAPE, whatever number it was, all A profile. Applied to the UWI and said, I've always wanted to be a medical doctor. And the UWI looked at him and said, sorry, you're great, but you can't afford it, so you can't come in. Now that's injustice, because we told him to do what he needed to do. And I got up, I called my friends in the private sector, and I said to them, we have to do something for this young man. Happily today, I think he's in about his 4th year of medicine. The point I'm making, we should not have to have that exception. That should be the norm, that a young man like this, who has performed, or any young child who has performed and have done their best, we now need to ensure that the facilities are there for them to achieve. That's what Garvey would want. So, this idea that we are going to fund only primary school and secondary school and leave people who are going to go to the higher level, which we are now talking about access to tertiary education, to fend for themselves and hope that somebody gets through, is a very dangerous idea for the development of our nation. Put simply, those countries that do not increase and improve the numbers of persons who access post-secondary education will be left behind in this new complex and diverse global world. So, bringing home all of this to our local context, I would like to take the next few minutes to focus on some critical issues within the local education environment that will need attention, and urgently, if we are to deal with global challenges and emerge stronger from these global crises I mentioned. If we accept the thesis that nations with higher levels of educated citizens will emerge stronger from crises compared to those who do not. Then it begs the question, how resilient is the Jamaican education system in preparing its citizens to deal with the myriad and complex global challenges in the VUCA world and emerge stronger? That's a question to ponder on. How resilient is the Jamaican education system in preparing its citizens to deal with the myriad and complex global challenges in the VUCA world and emerge stronger? This is a serious question. It's a question that requires thought, and we have to think through them and deal with them. But to tell you why this question is serious and requires a lot of thought and not just gimmickry, let me share some very sobering statistics with you. Of all the countries in the Caribbean region, only about 4 have post-secondary education rate above 60%. Post-secondary participation rate above 60%. And I can name them: Trinidad, Barbados, I think Trinidad, Barbados, Grenada, and somebody else. 4. That is, to put it simply, out of every 10 students that leave the secondary level, only 6 of them go on to post-secondary education. 6. So that means that 4 of them are somewhere around. We don't know where they're gone. But only 4 countries in the region have that. In the wider Latin America and the Caribbean, it's about 5 out of every 10. But if we go to Singapore, which we like to compare ourselves with, United States and all those places, you know how many out of the 10 make it to that level? 8. 8. So every 10 students in the United States or Singapore who leave secondary education, 8 of them find themselves into post-secondary education to acquire the skills that I'm talking about to operate in a complex world. So we can't have our students graduating from secondary school and then have no hope. So you talk about crime and all of these confusion that is going on and social ills. That's part of the problem. You have these kids at 17 and 18 leaving secondary education and have nowhere to go, have nothing to do, have no skills to participate in the global economy that is becoming more complex. So at one time when they could go and they maybe cut the sugar cane, or they could go in a factory to do a machine and wipe it down and stuff, you don't need that anymore because AI is there. The technology is there. They're doing all of that. So what you need is more complex skills that are going to help you to participate. So that's the reality. But let us take Jamaica. Let's look at the Caribbean, Latin America, the wider world. But what do you think the number is in Jamaica? Of every 10 Jamaican students who leave the secondary level, only 2 move on to post-secondary education. Only 2. 8 of those kids are somewhere around that we don't know what they're doing. Now, as one minister said, let that sink in. Because when it sinks in, you're starting to realize the complexity of the problem we have as a country. And if we're serious about moving forward, you're going to realize that our human capital cannot carry us. Simply put, the low level of skills in our economy cannot carry us. We have a situation where we have about 1.3 million people in the labor force. I mean, my statistics may be a little bit off now, but roughly around there. About 1.3 million people working. And of that 1.3 million people, only 268,000 have any form of certification. So you have almost 1 million people just doing something because their brain tells them that they can do it. No certification at all. So they can't transfer the skill anywhere else. That's the way labor force that you have in Jamaica. So if somebody comes tomorrow morning and says, repatriate this workforce to somewhere else, the United States and so, 1 million of our people could not do it because they don't have any certification. So it's real, Chairman, that access to education is a real issue that we're dealing with. So the Orlando Patterson report and his team, Orlando Patterson and his team recently produced a tome on Jamaica's education sector, which should be made compulsory reading for all those who are involved in education. While the vast majority of the findings are not new, and could be traced back to the late Dr. Ray Davies-led Rose report of 2004, Patterson's report, what it has done in my estimation, not anything new or novel, but what it has done is to reignite a fundamental debate in our country, and that is the role of education in national development. The report, however, should be read in conjunction with another insightful piece done by the World Bank and the UNICEF Group, which analyze public education spending in Jamaica. Both reports provide important evidentiary base for designing the future of Jamaica's education system. But let me haste to say that while the Patterson report and the World Bank UNICEF report are detailed and comprehensive, they have told us nothing new. Nothing new. They both point to an education system with pockets of success. So you have a few guys who do well. And my friends and I have always said it's the mercy of God why some of us did well. Because of the background we're coming from. Those backgrounds, when you look at the literature, are not the backgrounds that would have guaranteed success. Kids going to school without meals, no shoes, no books, noise in their communities at night when they come home, people DJing on their sound system, cussing up bad words and all kind of thing they can't study. No light in their homes. Thank God for rural electrification program, it's real. No running water in their homes. They are predisposed to conditions for failure, not for success. So you have pockets of success, but we use those pockets of success and think it's the norm. It's not the norm. What we have is an education system characterized by inefficiency, lack of accountability, and poor outcomes at the end of the education life cycle for learners. The PISA report just recently came out that says that only 15% of the Jamaican kids can do maths and read and write. 15%. It's there, you can look at it. Yeah? Compared to our counterparts in the global north. Put simply, the report tells us that we have an education architecture that is not fit for purpose for the 21st century. It is not fit for purpose. A close observation of our system, as highlighted by Bogues in a recent policy document that he produced to look at how Jamaica should position itself for the 21st century. We have a system defined by high levels of inequality. What we see are children of lower socioeconomic backgrounds faring the worst in the system. The system emphasizes rote teaching and learning over play and curiosity building. Success is determined by passes in exams, while it streams and weeds out the underachievers. So if you don't pass common entrance or GSAT, dog nom your supper. That's really what's happening now. Education for industry is what we're talking about, preparing people to go to work and not for enlightenment and innovation. It is Benjamin Disraeli in, I think it was 1873, in the British House of Commons, who once said, education is for light, liberty, and learning. Education is not just for you to get a job. It's for enlightenment. And our system is more geared towards getting people to get a job tomorrow. Jobs change every day. So you should not educate for a job. Enlighten people, and enlightened people will find their jobs. We have a system that privileges the English language over the mother tongue. Half of the kids who are not exposed to understanding the English language don't understand what is being taught in their schools. We have to take a serious look at that as well. We have a system that reproduces anti-black ideas over self-esteem and building a future which is demonstrated in discrimination against African hair and most things African. And they find Eurocentric ideals of hair, skin color, body weight, and religious beliefs. That's what we have. We have a system that reproduces class and color inequality. And these are real. Let's not push them under the carpet. They're real in our education system. So these are features of our educational system that must be looked at in the broader national context, where educational attainment of families, food security for families, levels of peace in communities, and the ability to pay for private school and extra lessons all impact on the outcomes from the education system today. Jamaica, being a meeting place of all groups of people, as Rex Nettleford used to usually say, is a battle for space. We are Europeans as we are Africans, and we are Chinese as we are Indians, but not on equal footing and respect for these groups. That impacts as well on the educational outcome. Nettleford says, as I indicated, using the Nettlefordian derivative, there seems to be a battle for space between these forces which place cultural forms in hierarchical relationship to each other. Europe above, respected and in the formal sector, African below, denigrated and in the informal sector. That's what we see in our society. With the African descendants being the majority group, it is no wonder why the underperformance is even more prevalent in that group today than in other groups in our society. So, ladies and gentlemen, indeed, there are so much trouble in the world today. Clearly, this picture of the system is even more concerning because the new global economy in which we are now operating, powered by the fifth industrial revolution, where knowledge will be the main source of competitive advantage, especially for small natural resource poor states like ours, an internationally competitive labor force will be the major factor that allow us to navigate the VUCA world that I just spoke about. Indeed, to be globally competitive, small countries like Jamaica will have to get their education sector operating at the highest level of efficiency and competitiveness. Otherwise, we are going to be left behind. We cannot have one part of the system working well and another part struggling. The entire education value chain must be internationally competitive. A major constraint, however, in getting the system to work, in my view, is funding. Funding. We have to address this issue of funding head on. We have to address the issue of financing education in its entirety head on. Financing the sector is not reallocating resources from one part of the sector to another. That's not financing. I have a deep concern, colleagues and friends, with a level of groupthink that is now going on as it relates to financing education, especially in a developing country like ours, with the historical context that I just posed to you, coming from plantation slavery and colonialism. Our model cannot be a copy and paste of a model coming from a country that has 300 years of history and heritage, and compared to us coming out of plantation slavery and colonialism, we have to think differently about how we do that. And I will explain this lopsided thinking as we go forward. But the gist is this. If you read that World Bank report that I spoke about, and read the Patterson report that I just spoke about as well, there seems to be a coalition of minds to say that, hey, the state cannot afford to fund education in its entirety. Now, Garvey would say, if you think that the state can't afford to fund education, wait till you get ignorance. They say, take resources from one area of the education system and starve another area. We have to correct this lopsided thinking immediately. Without a properly financed education sector, Jamaica will not build a competitive labor force that is suitable and fit for the 21st century, and we will not be able to deal with the current and emergent crises globally and emerge stronger. So I want to firstly say that we should reject and reject is a very strong word, but I find it quite repugnant for any analyst to tell me that because more people at the tertiary level enjoy a greater level of access to financial resources, put simply, more people who get tertiary or post-secondary education are the people who can afford it. That's what the argument says. Most people who get it or are there now are the people who can afford it. And therefore, it is inequitable. It is inequitable to take the resources and give it to that sector because they can already afford it. It is inequitable to give them the resources and starve the primary and preschool and secondary sector. So that's how the thinking goes. I find it repugnant because the statistic that I just showed you masked the reality. Even if it is true, which it is not true, even if it were to be true, that the 20% who moves on to post-secondary are the wealthiest in the population, what the analysis has done is to ignore that there's 80% who cannot afford it. That is what, James, I call illogical thinking. Because you ignore the 80%, you take the face value of the 20% and say they can already afford it. So take the resources from them, not realizing that there is 80% who needs to come into that bracket and can't come in there. So when you reallocate the resources, what you are doing is to say to that 80%, stay where you are. That's really what you're doing. Stay where you are. We don't care about you. Take the resources from you and give it to somebody else. Lopsided thinking. It cannot work, and it should not work, and it will not work, and it is a repugnant way to deal with things. So, taking this kind of thinking, it is important to note that the structure of the Jamaican economy will not allow for those kind of funding model to be the direction in which we're going for education. So, I want to strongly suggest that secondary and primary and pre-primary education, while important, will not get us out of the trap that we have found ourselves in as a country for the past 60 years. And what is that trap? That trap is a low wage, low growth, low technology trap. So yes, people are working, but you would call them the working poor because they're working and can't afford to live. Low wages. Yes, we have growth, but the growth is still meandering at less than 2% annually. For 60 years, we have grown more than 2%, maybe about 17 times. It's about 17 times over 60 years. For the remaining 43 years is no growth or average of about 0.8%. So, in order to get us out of that quagmire, as some of my friends call it, the unholy trinity of low growth, low wage, and low technology, the fundamental solution is that we have to move access to tertiary education, and let me not say tertiary, but post-secondary education from 2 out of 10 to at least 8 out of 10. That is going to be the game changer. That is what a country like ours is going to need in order to move us forward. We have to move access to tertiary education, to post-secondary education from 2 out of 10 to at least 8 out of 10 in order to get it right. So, today, ladies and gentlemen, we have to prioritize education as a developmental tool for our country. But most importantly, we have to prioritize education in its entirety, for access to post-secondary education is too low. It is low and it is troubling. I'm happy to see that the recommendations from the Patterson report are now being implemented in a way to address some of these concerns that I've just spoken about. I happen to have had a chat with the chairman of the Education Transformation Committee, and he said of the over 365 recommendations that are in that report, about 151 have been implemented or on the way of implementation so far. That must be applauded. That's good. But we have to go further. We have to do more. So the expenditure on education, especially post-secondary education, will be critical to help nations like ours to navigate the global economy. The less educated our citizens are, the less likely it is that our nation will manage global crises well. Education must be elevated as a major tool to help us to deal with the complexity in an increasingly inhospitable global world. Given fiscal limitations, choices on where expenditure go will have to be made. But I would say to you, at the top of those choices, funding education in its entirety must be priority number one for our country, or countries of our same size and history, to improve access to post-secondary education. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will implore you that to make Garvey's dream come true, which is up you mighty race, you can achieve what you will. Let us have an all-of-society approach to advocating for increased access to higher education. Let us have an all-of-society approach advocating for the funding of education in its entirety. Let us watch our society get educated and watch our nation navigate this VUCA world. So, I end where I started. With so much trouble in the world, the way earthly things are going, anything can happen. Anything can happen. And we know that great advocacy for better funding of our education system in its entirety can happen and must happen and will have to happen to ensure that we have a chance in a global competitive world. Thank you.
Boy, that was some speech, some lecture, eh? Yeah? What a belly full. Boy, I'll never stop thanking the Custis Walters and the committee and the staff of the Library Service for what they have done for us this morning, to bring a man like Professor Williams here to enlighten us and to give us such a charge and such a educational opening, vistas of education, opening things that we haven't thought about enough or not aware enough. It has just come home to us, and today in a very forceful fashion. I think we're different thinkers, we're different thoughts from what we came here with. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very, very much. As we said, that time is restricted, and I'm just looking at my time here now. But you only have 5 minutes? Okay, 10 minutes. I'm going to go directly to questions and answers, but we only have a few minutes, and it has to be directed at what the gentleman, the professor, spoke about, the topic. Nothing else, sir, nothing else, just the topic on education. May I have that first? I'm only allowing a short question and a short answer, and probably 2 or 3. If you, eh? No, they want you to stay there. For the camera, you have to stay down there.
Professor Williams. Thank you, Professor Williams. Thank you, Professor Williams. Thank you, Professor Williams. You have opened our minds. I'm hoping that there will be more children here, especially from the Marcus Garvey Technical High School. I would have expected more, and I hope next time this fault would not fall upon their shoulders. Now I have two one-line questions. One is that I believe that Marcus Garvey is the greatest human being that has walked the face of this earth during the 20th century. It is debatable, I know, but please, schools, debate it. Marcus Garvey is the greatest human being that has walked the earth of the 2000 period. And I thank you for enabling me to maintain that belief. When you started, Dr. Williams, you started with quotes that are strongly based on Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey's book, the book, Message to My People, that book, the first line in that book is to read, 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 verse to that effect, from Marcus Garvey. So his first lesson in terms of message to that, to his people, is to read the thick book. You can read it off in no time still, but that was the first advice I submit this to the children, especially.
Sir, just reminding you that you have to direct a question here, and you will have 1 minute left.
Well, I want to ask Dr. Williams to read.
No, if you have a question, just direct it quick for me, please.
The question that I'd like
one
to
question.
address, one more of my question that I had three, but I just
on the
asked
speech.
two.
Yeah, but go ahead.
I just asked two. One more. Amy Jakes Garvey. I know that a lot of us have not heard that name before, but we seem to forget the contribution of our women to the strength of this nation. And Amy Jakes Garvey is an example to Jamaican women in terms of how you stick with your husband, your mate, you follow their dreams, you support them when they go to prison, and they make it.
Thank you very much for that question and that statement. Right?
I would ask the committee to ask the next lecturer
to be Amy Jakes.
To include Amy
Okay,
Jakes.
thank you very, very much.
Right,
Good.
right.
I'm going to, doctor has a question directed to on the subject matter.
Yes.
And after you will allow one student, you must have one student willing to ask a question, and then that's it for the questions. One.
Professor Williams, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. My question is, after all is said and done, when you leave here, what is the one charge that you will have for the Heritage Foundation to put your concept into construct?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Very, very good question. What do you do, or what is takeaway from this? If I were to say the high-level takeaway, it's simply this: become an advocate for funding education. That's what I would say.
Did you say a what for funding education? An advocate?
Advocate.
But maybe she can actually do the... provide the funding. Yes, madam.
Thank you so much, Professor. I mean, you know, this is so thought-provoking, and you have to come back. So this has short change. Let you know when. What has been topical for rural country, rural Jamaica, is the divide between patois and English. And we in the country do not take the intellectual approach, because you, especially in the metropole, Kingston, say we must come knowing the language of English. English is the language of commerce and of the world. So how do we teach? Our thought is that we don't need to teach patois. Our teachers know patois. All of us know patois, so they might have to interpret some of the terms in our language. But we are judged of the transition of the language. We want to know, is there a formal process or there's a formal dictionary
Mic check.
for our jargon? Regret we are not seeing it enough as we read. So I'm asking you, how can we make that transition? Because we want a global education, as you're rightly saying, but we need the foundational skills. We have seen it. This is why the St. Anne Homecoming went for the boys from 4, because it is so weak. We've seen the university saying that they have to do remedial in mathematics and English, because we know what they come up. We who live from day to day here, it's a constant joke, and it's no disrespect to people like our security guards when we have hotel a full list when we go through their gate and they can't find W because they don't know that UWITV. They go through the whole alphabet. So we need from the university to help us with this transition. How do we preserve our culture yet work towards getting our metropolitan language or language of commerce in place that make us into the global citizens?
Thank you, Costas. This one? This one, sir? Prof?
I don't think it's on, but thank you, Costas. I'm going to give a quick answer to that. I'm really sorry that I have to rush on it, but the truth is that you're onto something with your observation. But recall the Nettlefordian quote the Nettlefordian observation about the battle for space. Do not take it lightly that we continue to denigrate things that we see as African and we elevate or deify Europeanness. But suffice to say, in my view, there doesn't have to be a tension between, and it's not really Patois, it's Jamaican, because Patois is a dialect that every other people speak. So you have the St. Lucian Patois, and have you been to St. Lucian here to speak Creole? Yeah, good. So it's really Jamaican. There doesn't have to be a tension between Jamaican and English. The truth is that the Germans speak Germany. People in Germany speak German. People in Spain speak Spanish, but they also learn English. People in Germany speak German, but they also learn English. People in Portugal speak Portuguese, but they learn English. So nothing is wrong if we teach Jamaican, use Jamaican, but learn English. It is accepted that English is the lingua franca of commerce. So nothing is wrong that we are learning it, but it's not a tension between Jamaican and that. We make it a tension because we think that we must denigrate anything that is homemade, custom made and stuff. I could give a myriad of examples about that. And this is a part of the thing that we're talking about, self-consciousness. But I quickly give you a quick example to show why we need to be very careful that we are not just always adopting foreign stuff. I was at a function recently and a professor of mine told me, and maybe those in agriculture would also know, we had one of the most renowned shrimp specialists in the world located right here in Jamaica, the most renowned. Everybody, I can't remember the name of the guy now, yeah? But everybody knows he was the man. And something happened and we wanted to deal with the shrimp thing from the Ministry of Agriculture. And they selected a guy from the United States to come over. The guy came to our local guy and said to him, why are they asking me to come? And it's you who taught me. But it shows you how we actually see our own things. And that is a part of the self-consciousness that we need to deal with. So it's not a tension, doesn't have to be a tension. We can teach Jamaican and we can teach English. Both can coexist. That's my view.
Right. I just have...
Hold on, sorry. Any student, I'm giving the students preference. I want a student to ask and professor would like to hear. You want to hear about getting into UW through the Garvey door or the Patwa door, see the man here? Come on, students. I'm giving you, if you don't, there's somebody else waiting to ask one more question. No student? Come, I hear some man up there with a young boy. Eh? Who? Who?
No, you said no. Right. So, sorry. Do you think, right. Well,
Come up and ask your question, please, with the mic.
right, thank you. Professor Williams, thank you so much. I am a returning resident, so, and I now live in the parish of St. Anne's. Thank you for that lecture. It was quite enlightening, and I do agree with 99% of what you've actually said. You spoke about emotional intelligence and so on. Emotional intelligence, team building, which are soft skills, which are not something that is necessarily taught in school at the moment. Where do you stand on social skills? Because that's also part from looking at the research and data that's actually going on now, that's very important when it comes to tertiary education. In fact, I know I'm an etiquette trainer here, and I've done some training with the Ministry of Education. And what I do know from the data, my research, is that when the students go out to actually for interview, you no longer have the old-fashioned interviewing technique where you sit behind a conference table and your academic qualification will get you through. It's also about your soft skills and your social skills. So where do you stand on that?
Thank you very much for that. So on that basis, listen, you're spot on. The truth is that technical skills are great and they're very important. Don't get it wrong. And they're needed. But these are things that eventually you're going to learn along the way once you have the right foundation. What is not so easy to come by is how you build those, what you're calling them soft skills, that is going to allow you to interact in a way that you feel comfortable with diversity. Yeah? Diversity is a critical part of the global world that we're operating in. And I give you a piece of information. So I was at Harvard the other day and I spoke to one of my good friends there. And he told me that 16,000 students apply to Harvard annually. They take 10%, which is about 1,600. Yeah? Of that 1,600, he said to me, every single one of these students have almost a perfect SAT score. Everyone. So the point he was getting at is that Denzel, SAT score is not going to get the students in Harvard anymore. It's the soft skills that you're talking about is really what's going to make the difference. And so that's why I said in my opening, in my comments earlier, that our curriculum has to be revised as well as part of the education transformation. At age 3, we should not be cramming the kids with all information in their head. They should go and play. They should go and play. They should be in the field playing and stuff. At age 9, these kids are doing more exams than you ever thought about. They should be playing and developing their skills to interact with people and problem solving when the kids fall. How you help a kid when that kid fall on the playing field. That shows how you're developing your problem solving skills and stuff. But instead, what we're doing is cramming them with exams. I see my daughter coming home with stuff that I learned only when I'm in sixth form. My daughter is learning about the CARICOM system in grade 6. And I'm saying, when you learn that in grade 6, what do you learn at sixth form? Yeah? I mean, it's troublesome, James, and as an educator, we have to think through it. There is a place of play in the education continuum. There is a place for kids to just explore. And the truth is that I like where we're going, which is one of the reasons why I must tell you the truth. I actually like the idea of PEP. I actually like it because it's not a single exam. It's a continuous process of assessment. How we do it, maybe some arguments around it, but the idea behind PEP is good, that we're assessing them from grade 3 up. What we put in that assessment is something we need to now think about. But the idea of continuous assessment. So you can have a bad day and go into the exam room, and that doesn't make you not good. As I was saying to my colleagues just a few weeks ago, we were discussing this. We in medicine at the UW, and maybe I shouldn't say this now, but we go for the top tier in medicine. But I'm saying A student with a B doesn't make a bad doctor compared to a student with an A. So we now have to start rethinking how we accept people in medical sciences there. I'm not in for this idea that only A students must go into medicine, because a guy who has a B grade can become a great doctor as well. So we need to look at things beyond that. So it's real. What you're saying is very real. It's very real. I'll take one from the student. Okay?
Take it. One, encourage them.
The students, yes.
To teach.
Okay, we're happy for the students. I'll take it. Just hope that the traffic is not bad to get down. Eh? That's it.
Excuse me. Sir, early in the lecture you mentioned about how in many cases students who graduate from primary school and high school, due to the funding of adults and the government to make sure that they pass, they get lost when it comes to going to college. They cannot afford tertiary education, so many of them drop out and start their life from there, because you said that only 2 out of the 10 can make it into college. That shouldn't be the case, because not everyone has to strive for a university that is top tier. Many children can settle for something simple like a community college, because those don't cost as much, and they give you enough information so that you can go out into the world as an adult. So I don't understand how it is possible for there to be community colleges all around Jamaica, but still all the children seem to be dropping out and starting their life half-built into college.
Thank you very much for that. It's interesting that you say that, so you're correct, and that is why in the lecture I made it clear that I made a distinction between university and post-secondary, because you're right, community college and those things are also there. TVET is also there and stuff, but what we're saying is that the students are not going there, because a lot of them after secondary school, they still can't afford to even go to community college, yeah? They can't afford to go to even Hard Trust. And this is a wonderful thing that I saw the government just did recently, to say we are going to provide an incentive for you to go to Hart. Because the truth is that a lot of the people still not even finding it. So Hart is part of post-secondary, and Hart gives you a certification. But a lot of them still can't find it. And do not take it lightly that when these kids are finished with secondary school, that's it for them. I know a lot of kids who say their parents even tell them there is no need for you to move on, because in their parents' time 40 years ago, when you left secondary school with a Cambridge certificate, as Roger Clark used to say, yeah, you're a big shot. You can get into a bank. You can get into a company. Look at, for example, Rafael Diaz. Do you remember Rafael Diaz from Grace Kennedy? You remember Rafael Diaz? The CEO of Grace Kennedy, the top of Grace Kennedy. Raf will tell you that he left secondary school and went to Grace Kennedy, but those days are over. So that's the thing that we have to balance with. So, and that's why I'm calling for us to look totally at the funding to make sure that those who can go will go. Yeah? Yes. Yes.
Went through all the forms and filled it up because my pension was fair, good. And I was told, no, I can't be a guarantor. So I said, forget about that then. You continued. And he continued at UTech, did all his exams, and now he's in London, has just passed his final exam to be a chartered accountant, and has done well. So yes, there are obstacles within the system for allowing people to move on in a further education. But
as you would appreciate, we have now, as a country, removed the need for guarantor completely.
At the time, yes, it was there, but it has been removed.
It's a wonderful move, but we have to go further than that, yeah? All right. One more student? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Nevada Hodges, and I go to the school of Marcus Garvey, a peer council, a cadet, and a student council. I would like to ask my question right now, sir. So, students nowadays use
AI, yes.
students nowadays use AI to find things and read up information about a lot of things. Some of them use it for different things. So I would like to ask my question, because at Marcus Garvey, they intend us to let us read and find information about us. So I would like to ask, what is the impact about AI?
Okay, very well. Okay. Do you want to just take the questions, Chairman? Do you want to just take the questions and I respond to them? Just take all 3 questions and I'll respond to them, yes? She said there was one more student with a question. So just take them and I'll respond. Yeah? All right, good.
The question I wanted to ask was more of a follow-up on the question that my fellow schoolmate had asked. It's the fact that students are not able to afford their education once they leave high school. The programs that are being offered, it's not very easy to acquire them because the regulations to join on them are very strict. They don't allow the majority of the people who really need it to go and access this program to go farther in life. So I was wondering, how could this be combated?
Okay. So you're talking about the matriculation requirement, yes? Okay. Yes.
Hello, good afternoon again. My name is Josiah Cox. I attend Steertown Academy. I'm the head boy of the institution. And good afternoon again, Professor. My question is, based on what was said earlier, was mentioned earlier, according to the financial issues that we students tend to undertake day by day during school and when even trying to go through tertiary level at an community college or UA, how would the government set up, take down the barriers so that we secondary leavers, school leavers should enter UA with a better chance of getting to do what we really want to do after the 2 years, or say, for instance, you want to do innovation and so forth, or travel and work. What would be set after you finish what is to be done?
Thank you. Chairman,
good afternoon.
Yes.
My question is, why isn't Garvism taught in high school?
Taught in high school?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chairman. I will. I really appreciate this from our students, and I'm happy that I'll take the time to respond to the students. Very well done. Thank you. So the first one, AI impact. Listen, again, we can't see this as either or. AI is there. It's not going away. It's a supporting tool for learning. So what we need to do, what AI is going to do, is to change the nature of the teacher. That's really what it is going to do. So I, as a teacher, I would have come to class and I would have my topic for today. Let me just use something that I'm comfortable with. I would be teaching something called capital asset pricing model. Yeah? And I would have said to the students, okay, this is the coupon rate. This is the length of the bond. This is the interest rate. Can you calculate the risk-free rate? I would have said that. Now, the student could easily go on AI and it gives them the answer. So I, as a teacher, can't do that anymore. What I have to do is to now give you 2 bonds, one with a coupon of this, one with a coupon of that, one with the interest of that, one with a length of maturity of that, and say to them, based on these 2 bonds, which will you think would be the most risky one to invest in or not? So it's an application that you're now doing rather than, so you know, having read the question, that you're going to have to calculate the risk-free rate. But as a teacher, I can't come to you and say, go and calculate the risk-free rate. All I'm asking you to do now is to apply, because I give you all the information and you have it now. So you must say, oh, what he's asking for is the risk-free rate and the bond. So I look for the bond with the lowest risk-free rate and I said, I recommend bond A over bond B. But that's how the teacher has to go. So it's really about application. It's not so much about regurgitations. I have no problem with AI. Since you now need to now recognize that you now have to use the AI to apply to the problem that you have. So the role of the teacher is changing. That's really what AI is actually doing, changing the role of the teacher. Matriculation, very good question. Because this is the point. We have to have different pathways to entry to our system. The truth is that the old traditional way of you pass 6C, you pass A levels, and you get into university, that has to change. What about, for example, work experience? You may not have had the chance to do CXC and do the 9, 10, 11 CXCs and stuff. But you would have worked in accounting for 15 years. You'd have gotten the CAT certification. You would have gotten some other certification that now prepare you to come and do a bachelor's degree in accounting. So what I have done, and I think maybe I've said this on a number of occasions before, maybe one of my proudest moments at the business school when I was there, is to revamp all our master's program to say that 15% of our cohort are coming in without the traditional qualifications. So you're going to come, and I mean, everybody knows the story. He always puts it up on his Facebook or whatever they call these social media thing. A guy called, he's a comedian, Fancy Cat, no, not Fancy Cat, Ellis, the other, IT. He've always put it up and say, I remember the day in my office, he came to me and said, I don't have no bachelor's degree and what have you, but I did a little diploma here, I did a little that, and I want an MBA. And it immediately struck me that, look at this man. He said, I've run a successful business for almost 20 years. I know what I'm doing. I have a diploma and I have some certification, and I need an MBA. The system didn't allow him to get an MBA. So what I did, I said, give me another few months. I went and I called the team together and I revamped the entire MBA, have a pathway to say 10% of the cohort is going to come in through what we call mature entry requirement. Today, IT Cat or Fancy Cat or whatever his name is, IT has his MBA. So we have to look at different pathways to entry. I think that's what you were getting at. Financing tertiary education, that's really what your question was about. There are 2 things I will say. I have a sophisticated model. I can't discuss it here now. I'll come back another time to discuss. I have a very sophisticated model which I've put forward to the government. But the simple model is this. Let your education become your collateral. So you enter education today, you enter university or wherever, you are almost sure that when you're finished, you're going to either start your own firm or get employed because you're qualified. Your income that you have is going to be contingent, the contingency to get you into education. So that must be the only collateral. It's called an income contingency model. So the income that you will get in the future should be able to secure your present day acceptance to a university. But that's one, and it's very complicated. I'll discuss it at another time. But the other big thing I will say though, people have to plan for their kids to enter university. This idea that students think that you can just wake up one morning, get a great hype, and enter university can't work. Starts with planning from day one. You have a child, your child is in prep school or primary school or wherever, make sure that you know that 10 years time, 15 years time, this child going to university, what am I doing to prepare for my child to go to university? We have to change that mindset that, hey, university don't require planning, because we plan for everything else, but we don't plan for university. We have to start planning for that. And the final thing, Garveyism in high school, I leave that to the policymakers. But there is nothing that should stop us. from teaching not just Garveyism, but teaching our own heroes. We learn about Hobbes, we learn about Mills, we learn about Machiavelli, but we have not learned about our own people. And I think that this is time for us to have a movement to have these things in school. All right? So, Chairman, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. We have a presentation to make. The library. Who has the plaque? Oh, the plaque is there. We have a presentation to make before Dr. Williams makes his exit. Where do we get that presentation? Is here? The plaque is here? Oh.
We appreciate you coming here today to take the time out to present to us, to have a wonderful trip going back. Your lecture was very inspiring, educational, and motivating. Thank you very much. We have learned a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay? You taking one more?
Just a picture.
Yeah, I have a... Well, thank you all. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to further engagement. Okay? Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't left yet, though. Please do not leave. We have one or two items still to go through. While we say goodbye and farewell and thanks to Professor Williams, we have a couple items and a little entertainment for you as well. So please do not depart. We're going